Right now at 5, the vote for impeachment is scheduled to happen tonight. We are taking a live look at those proceedings now as we have team coverage from Washington just ahead.
History being made today on Capitol Hill with the impeachment vote. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with the latest arguments and developments.
I'm James Rosen on Capitol Hill. On the day President Trump faces formal impeachment by the House of Representatives, we look back in history at some presidential abuses of power, some known at the time, some only disclosed years, even decades after the fact.
And with just one more council meeting left in her term, Rhonda Capron looks back on her time serving the city of Sioux City.
This is Siouxland News at 5 on KMEG 14.
As we speak, history is being made in Washington, D.C. President Trump facing only the third impeachment vote in the nation's history.
It could take place any moment. You've been watching a live look at the House floor in Washington. That vote for impeachment appears almost certain with the number of Democrats in the House. And tonight, the latest developments in the impeachment are first on Siouxland News.
Tonight, we have team coverage from Washington. Our national investigative reporter James Rosen joins us tonight with a look back at the history on impeachment in the United States.
And our chief political correspondent Scott Thuman has a breakdown of the day's proceedings. Now, if articles are approved, there will be a Senate trial next month to possibly remove the president from office.
Tonight, Scott Thuman joins us from Capitol Hill with the latest in the impeachment vote. Scott?
Dressed in black to reflect the somber day unfolding under her watch, Nancy Pelosi opened debate with a pledge of allegiance and allegations of wrongdoing.
Our founders' vision of a republic is under threat from actions from the White House. That is why today, as Speaker of the House, I solemnly and sadly open the debate on the impeachment of the President of the United States.
Democrats' argument was simple.
No one in America could do what Donald Trump did and get away with it.
He tried to cheat, he got caught, he confessed.
We have a president who seems to believe he is a king.
While outside, those demanding Trump's removal crowded the Capitol lawn, inside, Republicans reacted with passion, at times disgust.
Why do we keep calling this a solemn occasion when you've been wanting to do this ever since the gentleman was elected?
The charges they refute: abuse of power for Trump's interactions with Ukraine to dig up dirt on Joe Biden, and obstruction for allegedly stymieing the congressional investigation. As his fate was being decided, the president tweeting in all caps, "atrocious lies" and "an assault on America." Republicans claiming their opponents are rushing to impeach because they worry they can't beat Trump in an election.
This is the most partisan impeachment in the history of the United States. I believe the Democrats are tearing this country apart.
I spoke with a source close to the president who said he does want that full, thorough Senate trial next. The president believes he could be vindicated, but the source also worries about how the president might react to impeachment if he will do, say, or tweet something that might actually make matters worse for him. On Capitol Hill, I'm Scott Thuman.
Impeachment was once considered so rare in our politics, but has now occurred 3 times in 45 years, twice in just the last 21 years.
Tonight, Sinclair correspondent James Rosen looks back now at some of the abuses of power by recent American presidents, with historians wondering which of them would have triggered impeachment proceedings now.
After President Nixon's conduct in Watergate forced his resignation from office under threat of impeachment in 1974, congressional investigations found several presidents had committed abuses of power. A select Senate panel created to study intelligence activities, known as the Church Committee, after Chairman Frank Church of Idaho found in its explosive final report issued in 1976, each administration, from Franklin D. Roosevelt's to Richard Nixon's, permitted and sometimes encouraged government agencies to handle essentially political intelligence. Barbara Perry is the co-editor of books about George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton.
So we're talking about some 30 to 35 years of, as you say, at least abuse of power, if not impeachable. The Congress was falling down on the job, if we believe in checks and balances, in terms of not checking the executive branch and using their oversight power and their power of investigation.
A date which will live in infamy.
After Pearl Harbor, Franklin Roosevelt presided over the internment of 120,000 Japanese Americans. Harry Truman used the FBI to collect inside information on journalist publishing plans.
In a decade of hope and fear,
President Kennedy ordered the assassination of at least one foreign leader and used the FBI to wiretap members of the executive and legislative branches, while his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, spied on the private life of civil rights leader Martin Luther King. And Lyndon Johnson used the FBI to conduct political investigations of his critics in the Senate, among other targets. Luke Nichter is the co-editor of 2 volumes of the Nixon tapes.
Nixon's still inheriting procedures from the Johnson era under Katzenbach and Bobby Kennedy prior to that. And he's starting to tinker with how this works. Do wiretap orders, for example, do they need to occur in writing? If they're in writing, who signs them? Is it the president, the attorney general? Then Watergate happens, and then we ultimately end up with the system we have today.
In November, surviving veterans of the Nixon White House gathered for their annual reunion here in Washington. Some attendees marveled at how the Trump White House has fought impeachment at every step and could be heard remarking that they and their boss, President Nixon, who ultimately surrendered his secret tapes, should have been tougher during Watergate. On Capitol Hill, James Rosen.
After the vote in the House, here is what happens next. First, a president who has been impeached by the House can still serve as president.
It's up to the Senate to hold a trial to decide whether to remove the president from office. Senators will serve as jurors, and House lawmakers will work as the prosecutors.
The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court will preside over the trial. The Senate must take a public vote, and 2/3 of senators present must vote to convict in order to remove the president from office. We expect the trial to start in early January. Between House sessions today, Iowa Congressman Steve King sat down with our team in Washington to talk about the impeachment.
He believes that the process is just the latest attack on the president by Democrats.
And this is the thinnest thread for impeachment in the history of the United States of America. There are no crimes that are there. They just simply say abuse of power. Well, abuse of power by their definition is disagreeing with the majority Democrats in the House of Representatives. So it's very frustrating to me, but I'll make this case.
King went on to say this attack on President Trump began before he even took office.
Meanwhile, Congressman Dave Loebsack says the Democrats have done their research and many did not decide to back the impeachment inquiry until they were deep into the investigation process.
Well, I was one of those who came very, very late to the impeachment inquiry in the first place because I was not convinced for quite some time that this is something that we ought to be doing. As I said, it's not something I planned to be voting on when I got elected, but we have a situation where, unfortunately, we do have a president who I believe abused his power of the office, and I believe he obstructed Congress and did both of those in an unconstitutional way, and that's why I'm voting the way I am today.
Now, to see the full interview from both Congressman King and Loebsack, you can go to this story on our website at SiouxlandNews.com.
You can also follow the live proceedings on our website and our Siouxland News app. Just click on the Watch tab.
In other news of the day, a beautiful sunny day across Siouxland.
And I hope there's more of this to come, John.
Oh, you're going to love this forecast when I get to it a little bit later on, but let's talk about the right now. We've got 35 degrees in Sioux City. What a beautiful sunset out there. Light south breeze at 7. That camera shot sponsored by JC Roofing and Insulating. Right now we've got 32 in Wayne, 30 in Cherokee, 30 in Orange City, and 35 in Norfolk. Most of the snow is just about gone now. We're going to see clear and cold weather. There could be some patchy fog late tonight. Temperatures down to 15 degrees. We've been talking about the possibility or lack thereof of a possible white Christmas. I'll have the latest numbers on that. Will it be a white or a brown Christmas? I'll let you know. And we're going to talk about some very warm air on the way for this time of the year as well. It's all straight ahead.
The director of the Sioux Gateway Airport says the city is taking steps to address the safety issues found by the FAA. Yesterday, the FAA announced it was issuing a more than $145,000 fine against the airport for a number of safety violations. Those violations included improper runway markings and grading issues. Today, in a message, Mike Collette told Siouxland News they are committed to maintaining a safe airport and that steps are being undertaken to ensure that future inspections meet FAA guidelines. To read the full statement, you can visit this story on SiouxlandNews.com.
Woodbury County Supervisor Jeremy Taylor has responded to questions raised about his residency after buying a home outside his elected district. At last night's supervisors meeting, Taylor was questioned about his residency following a story in the Sioux City Journal that he had bought a home in the Morningside area earlier this year. which is outside the North Side District he was elected to serve. Now, we reached out to Taylor for a comment, and he sent us this statement saying, in part, we have a large family and did purchase a second home. The home from which I was elected is where we have our legal residence, where I'm registered to vote, and are completely in compliance with election law. Coming up next, a longtime council member takes a look back at her time serving Sioux City. That's just ahead of her last meeting.
But first, the local sheriff was recognized for his dedication to the community. The Siouxland News at 5 returns.
Today, Sioux City city officials came together to celebrate Rhonda Capron's 8 years of service as she gets ready to leave the city council. Capron was the fourth woman in Sioux City history to be elected to the council. She says she's always tried to put the people first, and she reflected on her reasoning for running back in 2011. She says she is ready for a break and will still be involved in the community and running her home care business called Rhonda Senior Support Service.
In order to be a good leader, you have to surround yourself by good people. We've come a long ways in 8 years, and I tell you, we've got more accomplished in 8 years than councils before us, probably 20 years before us, and it's because we have a great council that work together. And I've always said from the start that it's always been the people's choice. That's why I ran in the first place.
Pete Grecken, who sat beside her on the council for 6 years, said that she made a lasting impact on the rest of the council and the community.
It takes courage to stand up and talk, but it also takes courage to sit down and listen. And Rhonda is a lady who will sit down and listen with everybody and do whatever she can do to help make a problem better.
Capron's last day of the city council will be at this coming Monday's meeting.
A Monona County first responder was honored today for going above and beyond the call of duty. Sheriff Jeff Pratt has been with the Monona County Sheriff's Office for 30 years, including 10 years as an EMT and volunteer firefighter. Today, Wings Air Rescue recognized Sheriff Pratt for his service to the community as the rescue services aims to shine a light on those making a difference.
We created the Experience Matters Award, and so what this award is to recognize people in our service area that are deserving of the award, and not just for their experience, but for what these people do with their experience.
For Pratt, this recognition came as a surprise.
Oh, this is really nice to be recognized by the people that I work with. I don't do this for recognition. I do this because I think that's what the community wants from their sheriff, is to be very active in their community.
Wings Air Rescue is still looking for nominations. If you know of someone in the community who should be recognized, we will provide the nomination link in this story on SiouxlandNews.com.
I hope you're feeling fantastic today, but in case you feel like you're coming down with something, it might be the early stages of spring fever. I'll explain coming up next.
Billions of dollars. That's how much some of Your first look forecast with Chief Meteorologist John Gerard.
Overall, what a beautiful day today. Not
really was.
bad.
I know, exactly.
I love seeing the sun.
Temperatures back above freezing,
Yeah.
and this is kind of the payoff for those days and days and days of really crummy weather. So this is the reward, and it looks like it's going to stay really, really nice for the next 6 days. But you know what happens in 7 days from today? It's Christmas.
Oh.
So we've kind of bumped up our chance of a white Christmas a little bit, just a little bit. Still a real slim chance. But the trend has gone up just a bit. I'll show you why in just a minute and how much. Right now, though, look at the snow is just about gone here in the dunes, and most likely where you are as well. A few big piles in some of the parking lots, though, where it was plowed a few days ago. But what's left even on the ground right now, and those shady spots will be mostly gone, if not entirely gone, by the weekend. There's our Skywatch camera from Dakota Dunes looking out toward I-29, where the lights are on. We tell people, turn your lights on if you like us at Siouxland News, and everybody's lights are on. 10.1 so far snowfall for the season in Sioux City. Normally we're 9.8, so we are right in the ballpark. Maybe it was just me, but I thought we had a little more than average, but well, we're right in the ballpark for where we should be through today's date. Last year we only had about 4 inches, so we're a lot higher than we were last year at this point. And normally for a full season, 34 inches, so we've got a long way to go. Around the region, in case you're wondering, some of you may be traveling to some of these places, and you want to show up and be really smart and know your numbers. So if you're heading to Minneapolis, so far they've had 20.6 for the season so far. Norfolk, 14.5. Sioux Falls at 11.3. Des Moines, 8 inches. In Lincoln, 4.2. They've actually had more in Lincoln than Omaha. Omaha's had 3.8 so far for the season. So again, we are right smack in the middle of that statistic there in Sioux City. 35 in Sioux City right now. The winds are south at 7. A camera shot, beautiful sunset there, sponsored by JC Roofing and Insulating. 31 in Wayne, 34 in Yankton, currently 26 in Spencer, and 29 in Cherokee. Storm Lake, you're 28. We've got just a few high, thin, wispy clouds going through the area tonight. We are actually tracking 2 weather systems, but I'm not concerned about either one of them because they're both going to be tracking to the north. That will leave us with little impact here in Siouxland, outside of a few clouds tonight and tomorrow. Not looking at any real major deal as far as that's concerned. And with those systems tracking to the north, it'll pull in some milder air. Look at these 30s and 40s over the next 3 or 4 days. Because of that, the chance of white Christmas is still pretty slim. But yesterday it was 5%. I bumped it up to 10% chance of snow falling and a 10% chance of snow on the ground. A little system could get in around Christmas or maybe the day after. So we're not going to reduce that to 0 just yet. 15, clear and cold, some patchy fog possible tonight. Then tomorrow, a pretty nice day. Clouds and sunshine, 38. Into the 40s. Look at that by Saturday and Sunday, 43 and 46. How about them apples?
Yeah, good time to get that last-minute shopping done before Christmas.
You bet.
All right, thanks, John.
When we come back with sports, we turn our attention again to the Morningside football team, just now wrapping up its first full day down in Louisiana as they prepare for the NAIA National Championship game. We'll have Andrew live in Grambling with this team as an update on the team's festivities this morning and afternoon. And coaches across the state continue to mourn the loss of legendary Hawkeye coach Hayden Fry. We have reaction from a pair of local coaches on what they remember about the man who rebuilt the Iowa football program. That's next in sports.
Sports with Owen Sebring.
Today we continue our championship chronicles as the Morningside football team approaches its second straight appearance in the NAIA title game. Andrew Rogers is live with us from Ruston, Louisiana, where the Mustangs are finishing their first full day of championship week. Andrew, what's been on the agenda for Wednesday?
Thanks, Owen. One of the most important events on the docket for today was the Champions of Character Luncheon. Now, I know what you're thinking. Because it's a luncheon, that's why it was my favorite. Yes, the Louisiana food is great, but the real reason is because 2 players were given the Champions of Character award, one from Marion, one from Morningside, and Seth Maitland was the recipient for the Mustangs. The 6'2" D lineman may look big and tough on the football field, but off of it, he has a soft spot for helping those in need. Maitland has participated in so many different community events, including giving his spring breakup double time to help with the Hurricane Harvey relief, working overseas in Tanzania, and even helping the Morningside football team raise 96 Operation Christmas Child shoe boxes for those in third world countries. Maitland thanks his parents for bringing him up the right way and the coaches for presenting him with the opportunities to help others in need.
Coach Ryan and the rest of the coaches are really great at making sure they produce young men in a proper way and building that character, and then kind of focus on your development as a football player. But they always want you to have good character, whether it be in the classroom, in the community, on the football field.
Speaking of making an impact, Iowa lost a great one on Tuesday. Hall of Fame head coach Hayden Fry had a tremendous coaching record at Iowa, leading the Hawkeyes to 3 Big Ten championships, 3 Rose Bowl appearances, and 10 AP Top 25 finishes. What makes his legacy even more inspirational is the footprint he left on earth before he left. He inspired so many athletes and coaches in the state of Iowa, and one Siouxland coach can't stress enough the impact Fry's imprint has on him as a coach.
He really truly cared about everyone, and he would take and do anything for you. And I think one of the many things that I learned from him was just the no nonsense, simple approach to things.
The best way to describe today is inspirational. Morningside will hit the gridiron in just a few minutes to resume preparation for Saturday's national championship game. More on that at 10, plus exclusive sound bites from both teams' press conferences earlier today and the team's trip inside the Eddie G. Robinson Museum. In Grambling, Andrew Rogers. Owen, back to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Well, the memories of Coach Fry hit close here in Siouxland with none other than Sioux City East basketball coach Raz Vanderloo. Coach Raz was a graduate assistant for the Hawkeye football team in 1988 and 1989. You see him over there on the left of Fry. And that was alongside other legendary members of the coaching tree like Dan McCarney, Bill Snyder, Bob Stoops, Kirk Ferentz, Barry Alvarez, and so on. Today he reflects on some of his fond memories of Coach Fry.
The things he's done for the whole state of Iowa can't
probably ever be repaid to him. He rose everything, not just the university, but I think all the football in the state, high schools too. When Iowa became better, I think the high schools became better, and the whole state football-wise definitely, had a better outlook.
We'll hear more from Coach Vanderloo tonight on Siouxland News at 10. And this afternoon, Hunter Deckers made his commitment to Iowa State officials, signing with the Cyclones to continue his career on the football field. The West Sioux quarterback ended his high school career as the state's all-time leader in passing yards and touchdowns, the only player to ever throw for over 10,000 yards in a career, and the winner of 2 state championships with the Falcons.
It's kind of everything I've dreamed of. I mean, I wanted to play at the highest level, and I mean, playing at a program like this is everything I could dream of.
Deckers is still in the midst of an impressive basketball season where he's averaging over 25 points per game. He plans to finish the year at West Sioux before reporting to Ames next summer. Back to that Vanderloo and Coach Fry connection. Such an interesting story. He was talking about how Coach Fry and George H.W. Bush were really close friends from their time in Texas together, and one time Bush was speaking in Cedar Rapids, and he came over to the stadium and met some of the assistants, and Coach Vanderloo had a chance to shake his hand and everything too.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. We've got a couple of things I want to point out to you in our extended forecast. First of all, notice this stretch of really, really nice weather, 30s and 40s. Winter begins on Saturday. We'll do so with highs of 43. Christmas Eve is looking pretty good, but it doesn't look like we'll need Rudolph's red nose for anything there. A little bit iffy by the time we get to later in the day on Christmas Day. A weather system might get us a mix of rain, snow, and sleet late in the day, but it's still pretty far away. We'll update that in the next few days.
All right. And happening now on Capitol Hill, the U.S. House is getting ready to vote on the 2 articles of impeachment, and we're going to...
I'm Tom Steyer, and I approve this message.